What is your opinion of the new patch in Naruto
It's
Storm
shit.
Connections? It's shit. Shit. Man
Sorry,
just
I
straight up
waited.
just said it's shit. It's
I
dog
should have
shit.
waited.
It's not. It's horse shit. It's bullshit. It's all the shits, bro.
Now, don't get me wrong. You know, like some of the things they implemented was great, but there's a lot of inconsistencies with it, and that's my major gripe about it. Yeah. So, you want me to share one of my viewpoints, or how you want to do that?
Well, just say, you can just say whatever you want, but I guess, you said that there's some good things. So what are the good things that you think they implemented?
All right, yeah, it's always nice to start out with the positives, right? Because people be like, "Oh, you're shitting on the game without any evidence." So let's go ahead and start with the positives, right?
Yeah.
The positives is the one thing that people have been harping on about for years, and that's the dealing with rage quitters, right?
Yeah.
Um, that has been a staple since online became a thing. You know, people would rage quit time and time again to preserve their precious VP. So the system that they put in place is great to see that they finally decided to do that. Um, so, I mean, that is a step in the right direction if for some miracle another Storm game happens to come up. So, I'll give it that.
Yeah, I
Another
mean, if
positive?
if another Storm game comes up, right, and
Yeah,
they
if, right?
actually start the game off with you being able to invite your friends and having a story mode for offline,
Yes.
and then the
Yeah.
online is like more stable than connections, and then there's
Yeah.
like leaving penalties. Wow, then the game is gonna be like Storm 5 if it comes out is gonna be absolutely insane, right? It's already
Yeah.
gonna be like light years ahead of connections just for that. But that's the problem.
Yeah, just that alone.
Connections will never be able to get past the fact that on release date and for almost an entire year, you weren't able to, or 6 months to a year, you weren't able to invite friends. There was, jitsu spam. Everything was spammable.
Hmm.
It doesn't teach you how to play the game. It's not
Yep.
clear, whether restands were intentional or not intentional. People swear that they are not intentional. Others say that they were intentional, but yet the developer says nothing. So how do we know if the developer says nothing? You don't know, right? So like
Yeah.
that, the
And
end of the
mhm.
day, these people are radio silent, and I feel like they're just doing all these changes just to appease what little audience they have. But I think it does more harm than good. But I mean, it is nice to get some good things, but I don't know. The game is not consistent, right? We have these things, but the game is not consistent now, in the sense that it will. We have lever penalties, but there's a glitch that actually kicks you out of the game, and the game interprets that glitch that it does to you as you leaving and you disconnecting, and then it penalizes you for that when
Yep.
you never did it. I got tons of people, a bunch of people that said they've never left a game in their life in any Storm game, and now they're have leaving penalties because of this glitch.
Yep. And see, um, this leads to a point that I talked to you about previously when it comes to lack of consistency. The fact that we have this problem right now just goes to show how disconnected CyberConnect 2 is when it comes to their own fan base, because you mentioned the whole thing about being able to play with your friends, right? And
Yeah.
this is another reoccurring issue that should have been fixed day one, because how are you going to forget about the uproar that, happened back when Storm 4 was released? There was a lot of cries for the inability to be able to play with your friends, and so you still wait like months and months and months just to make that a reality. Then problem number two, rage quitting has been a problem since Storm 2.
Yeah.
And you're telling
Really,
me
yeah.
just now? Just now, year 2020, what, 2024, and they
It's more than 10 years
just
later. It's
now did
more
it.
more than a decade later. It's like almost a decade and a half later.
that just proves that there's a huge disconnect between CyberConnect 2 and their fans because if they were paying attention, they would have fixed this day one. So people out there that's running their mouth about talking about they listened, they were deaf for a while. Because if
Yeah,
they
yeah.
truly listened,
Hmm.
day one, those problems would have worked on.
Or there would have been lever penalties in Storm 4, in Revolution, in Storm 3, in Storm 2, in Generations. Like, at least in
Yeah, if you
Generations,
want to
there'd
go
be
that far back.
yeah, maybe at least in Generations of Storm 3. But I don't know. I think that.
Yeah,
Do you think that they knew about this as a problem, but they just thought, nah, we just won't deal with it?
it's really hard to tell what they were thinking. I mean, because common sense would have told you, okay, if they would have really been keeping an eye on the reception and how the community felt as the game progresses over the years, they would have picked up on it. It just seems like they didn't even try because when you look at other game developers, they pay attention to that shit and they try to address it as soon as possible. CyberConnect 2 is not doing that, and I'm not mentioning Bandai Namco because Bandai Namco is the publisher. They're not the one that actually creates the game. They're the one that tells the developers, "Hey, I want you to make this game, make it happen." You know what
Hmm.
I mean? They are the ones. Bandai Namco is the ones that actually gives the green light for whatever project. CyberConnect 2 are the ones that's responsible for putting the game together, and they're the ones that has to look at their game and figure out, okay, what are we going to do to make this game better, what are we going to focus on, and it just seems like their focus, it's just not where it should be, because if it was a lot of these problems, they would have made a better, I'm not going to say a better, but a much better effort to actually improve the game over the years because this isn't their first rodeo with Storm.
I completely agree, but my intuition tells me that there may be some kind of legal troubles and like there may be some uh sort of I forget what it's called, but like contracts where you can't speak or about certain things. Um because this is just way too odd for me, right? Where I've seen a lot of interviews with CC2 talking about the games, and they used to be very direct, and now they're completely standoffish and extremely vague, and they answer the question, but they don't really answer it. Like it's a very kind of politically correct answer. So I don't know. I do agree with you for sure, but I also think
Mm.
maybe there may be something there with Bandai Namco because it is such a bigger corporation. Um, that something is happening there, uh, or at least that the two are not getting along, because I mean, CyberConnect 2 has never finished made an unfinished game before, and that is very suspect to me. It's very sus. Especially after Storm 4, which was basically the most successful anime game of all time, or at least one that sold the most copies, I think, so far, out of any anime game. So to go from that and then having this big letdown, which is Naruto Storm Connections, uh, it's very suspicious to me. It doesn't feel right. It seems like something is odd, totally off. But to go back to the question, do you think that like what do you think of the patch?
Very inconsistent. And
Okay.
that's the thing that kills it for me. It's not that I don't like the fact that they tried. I mean, they tried to do some good things, but at the same time, it's like, what are you doing to make sure that your patch is actually going to be a success? Because I mean, yeah, on paper it's great, especially with the disconnections and punishing people for disconnecting. But like I said previously, it's a double-edged sword if the network system that they have in place doesn't what's the word, doesn't work the way they intended.
Yeah, it's not
Because
accurately
yeah,
punishing people. And then
yeah,
it's punishing people
yeah,
that it's kicking out, which is crazy. That's like super abusive, right?
yeah. And then if it's not punishing you in that regard, when it comes to the way the game behaves with certain people, it's bad. I'll tell you this. I'll give you a perfect example. I live streamed, right?
Yeah,
I played one of my regulars, and I played them quite a few times before this new patch.
yeah,
And I've never seen this before when I played them. When I played them before, the match was seamless, right?
yeah.
And after the patch, the matches actually stuttered where every now and then in between the fight that connecting message would pop up for like maybe like a second or a millisecond and then goes away, and it's like, wow, like what's happening here? This never happened before.
Also, I saw a
Um,
lot of freeze frames too. I saw that message pop up a few times, but I also
yeah.
saw a lot of like like the game chugging, and there being a lot of freeze frames in the gameplay. You know, like the game would
Okay.
pause at times as
Yeah,
well.
brief pause.
Brief pause.
Yeah, it's awkward. Here's another one for you. Before I did the custom lobby, and I was trying out rank just to see what's going on with that. You know, I really did like the fact that you could look at their actual connection for, you know, like their, not only their badge but also the connection itself, like what bar is it? Is it a red, yellow, or blue?
Yeah,
And before the patch, you know, I played a lot of yellow bars, and some yellow bars were bad, but for the most part, playing against the yellow bar was actually playable. But
yeah.
there was one dude that I played where it felt like a red bar. I mean, it
Even
was
though it was yellow.
abysmal. Yes, it literally felt like a red bar. I couldn't react. I could barely do anything. And I'm like, okay, once again, it's that issue because I also played another player. Now this was during like the custom matches or whatever. I played Sarasa 6, and I didn't do a custom match at first. He was actually inviting me to his lobby. So every time we would play, one time it was yellow blood red, and every time we played, you know, it would cut off, right? And it's not like I rage quit it or anything because I clearly did not press the home button to force myself out of the match. It just would cut off, and then I get an error message. But imagine if that spit was going on in rank. There's no telling who would be impacted by that. And of course, one person is going to look at the other person like, you rage quit, da, da, da. I'm going to expose you. You know, that sort of thing.
Oh, you mean like what people have been doing since the beginning of Storm Games for like the last 13 years?
Yep,
You mean like the whole exposed community that is uniquely Naruto Storm? Like, I'm not saying people don't get
yep.
exposed in other communities, but not like they do in Storm games. And I wonder where that comes from. It like
Hmm.
people, it's in front of them the entire time, and nobody sees it. It literally comes from this dog shit netcode and unstable online experience that we have. You know,
Hmm.
in other games, like if you are good at Street Fighter, right, and you play a Street Fighter game, generally, most of the time in most Street Fighter games, even if you want to talk some smack to someone or try to expose someone, if that other person has skill, they're gonna defend themselves and they'll probably beat you. you can't be a fake player or a poser.
Right.
But in this game, it's easy for a super skilled player to get leg disadvantage and then lose against an average player, right? Or even if they're similar in skill, but
Yeah.
one is just a little bit better, anybody can win. And I don't know. I've gotten to the point where I think maybe they do this on purpose. I think that they know a lot more than they let on. They like this is the same game for like basically since Storm 2, right? Because they just keep building on Storm 2 over and over and over again, right? And I
Hmm.
think that's why this game is so buggy. This is now what the Storm 2 gens, Storm 3 Rev, Storm 4. What is it? The sixth
Hmm.
game or something like that, right? That
Yeah.
they've built upon another game, another game, another game. Like it's the same game with the same
Yeah.
moveset. There's no way
Yeah.
that
They're
they
not
built this from
changing
the ground
anything.
up, right? There's no way.
No. It's yeah. No.
So what do you think is going to happen like when they do that, right? And then you're going to have tons of bugs and it's going to be very inconsistent, very laggy. And I don't know. I think that this thing is definitely like a lawsuit waiting to happen because especially someone for someone who has a YouTube channel that talks mainly only about these kind of games, like this is just a horrible, horrible thing, right? Like you can't bet on something or bank on something like this when it's inconsistent, you know?
Yep. You can't.
And I can't
Let
personally
me.
promote anymore these games to anybody. If anyone ever tells me, "Hey, should I play a Storm game?" my answer will always be now, until they fix the netcode, now from the end of time, will always be, please don't waste your time. It's not good for your health, mental, physical, nothing. It's not good for friendships. It's not good for anything. These games do not make the world a better place. I wish they
Yeah.
didn't exist. That's the point where I'm at.
I
That's
feel
cr-
like it's. I get what you're saying. I feel like it's just due to the kind of culture that that was created, over the years, especially the certain things that people like, the certain things that people hate, and the change in agenda because of the fact that in the past, you know, it was more so entertainment, right? But when you look at people's ideas, what they want out of the game,